So this is the official documentation for Methane CLI. So Methane is a CLI tool that helps developers create React components, pages, or Next.js components, pages, dynamic pages, and service worker files with boilerplate code. It also comes with extra configuration that allows you to choose either JavaScript or TypeScript templates. And you are going to understand what I meant by that. So this is the newest version, the patch version v1.4.8, which I just released like 20 minutes ago. So let's get back into the video. So now let's get to the installation. Now if you want to install Methane CLI as a global package, it is not a project, it is not a package that is dependent, that you need to install for every project. So once you install it globally, you are good to go. So if you are using npm, if you are using Born, if you are using yarn or any other package managers. So now I already have Methane installed. If I open a new tab in my terminal and I type Methane, I get this. So this is a proof that I have Methane installed. And if you don't have Methane installed, you can just use npm i/g methane. So I already have it installed. And then you want to make sure you have the latest version of Methane. So how do you check the latest version? You just do methane/v, capital V. So you get v1.4.8. so that's the latest version of Methane. So now let's go into the commands. So we have the help command, we have the version, we have the generate, we have the config, we have the init, and we have the list config. So now I have two projects here. I hope you can see my screen. I have two projects here. A React.js app, I think using a Next.js app, rather Next.js 14 and the good stuff. And then I have a React application here too. So now let's start with the React. So let me close my terminal. You can see this is a basic project with React Vite. So now you want to use Methane in your React project, you have to initialize Methane. So now how do you initialize Methane? You just come to your terminal and run methane init. So we're also going to get to this flag, default flag. So this default flag now is going to assume you're using Next.js, and then it's going to give you the default configuration, so you don't have to manually answer question every time you want to each time you start a new project. So let's just walk through the methane init. So I press enter, it's asking me select default template. So now I'm using TypeScript here, so select CSS, default components type arrow, of course arrow, generate a style sheet file for the components and pages, false, because most times I use Tailwind CSS, another UI library like Shadcn and Daisy UI and the rest. So but I don't really need the custom CSS file, but I mean if you are using raw CSS, you can select that option. So generate a folder for component and pages. Yes, that is true, I want that. Okay, register registers pages in app entry point. So if you are using Next.js, you don't need to do this, because Next.js automatically has its own routing system which is file based. But React, you have to manually declare the route. And also if you are using React, just switch to yes, true, it is true. If you are using Next.js, just false. So I'm going to click true, and then set default style type, so CSS. So the maintain configurations has been initialized successfully. So I'll just clear my terminal, and then if I come here, I can see I have a folder methane and then methane.json. So I can see template, CSS, and those stuff that we selected from the command line. We've gotten our methane configurations. So now we can start generating components. So now I want to open my terminal. Now in a basic React project, the convention is you have a component folder and then you have a pages folder, or components, the plural components, and then pages, or singular components and then page. but I mean it makes a lot of sense to have components and pages, because in a typical React application you are going to have multiple components and then multiple pages. So let me create a new folder. Sorry, so I mean React demo. So let me create a new folder, pages, and then I also create a new folder, components. So Methane is very smart. It's is going to detect if you have the component or page folder, so it does not really matter. It can also detect underscore components and also underscore pages. So yeah, it's very, very smart. So no matter, the most important thing is you have a component and then a pages folder in your base project, in the roots directory of your application. So now we already have our components and then our pages folder. So now we can start generating components. So for example, if I want to create a button component, I can just, in my React demo, so I can just type methane G. So this G stands for generate. So if you come to the documentation here, we can see G stands for generate components, pages, or service worker files. So methane G /C, what type of components, what do I want to generate? I want to generate a component, so I use the /C or the -C, and then what is my component name? So for example, I want to generate I can see my terminal is already suggesting. So this is fish terminal, by the way. It's a very awesome terminal. So now I can just type button. So that is the component I want to generate, and I press enter. So it's telling me button component generated successfully. I close my terminal, I go into my components. I have a button folder, and I have an index.tsx. So if I was using JavaScript, it will be .gsx. And how do we test that? Let's come to our methane, and then we change this template tsx to gsx. Mind you, you can also change this from the command line if you don't want to change it manually. Let's check the documentation. So change template. So you can just copy this methane CLI template tsx. You can copy this. So and then open your terminal, paste it here. So we can see it is tsx right now. We can change it to gsx, and automatically you can see it has changed to gsx. So now let's close our terminal, and then let's generate a new component so we can verify that it's actually going to change by using TypeScript or JavaScript. So let's run that. Methane G/C. Now let me generate maybe footer component. So now I've generated my footer component. If I go back to my components, my footer, I can see index.gsx. So and then we can see we don't get the interface button props that we had in TypeScript. We don't get it in our footer components here. So you can see generating components with Methane is very, very easy. You just write a single command on the terminal, and then it's going to create a page for you. It's going to create the components for you. It also has the boilerplate, the RAFCE stuff that you get by default, and then you don't even have to manually have to change the template of the RAFCE. So you get everything by default with Methane. So it's something I use in all my projects, like all my projects. I'm going to walk you through that too. So now we've generated our components. So now let me delete this footer component. Then let me also change the configuration. Methane God, I can't spell. See templates, I change it to tsx. So I've changed it back to tsx. So now let's move from components to pages. So now let me generate a new page, and this is where things get interesting. So now I have the components folder here, and then I have the pages. So now let me generate for example, let me generate a home page, about, and what is just a typical website. So Methane G. Now I'm not generating a component, I'm generating a page, so it's going to be, guess what, it's going to be /p exactly, so home. So now it's telling me home page generated successfully, added to /user/mac/desktop Methane demo React demo /src app.tsx. Again, Methane is going to detect your React application entry point, so that is where it's going to automatically import the page you just generated. So now you go to our source file page, and then you have your generate folder. Where is the Methane configuration? You have this flag in your Methane configuration, this register to true. It will automatically import the page you just created, so you can it will import it into your application entry point, so you can, like, if you are using React Router DOM, so you can like map out the route immediately, so you don't have to start typing import home. So immediately you create a page in React, it will automatically import it to your application entry point, which is the app.tsx or app.tsx or main.tsx or main.tsx. Methane is smart, it will automatically find out whatever name whatever file it is, or even index.tsx. So that is all for page generation. So now I've talked so much about React. Let's move to NextJS for the NextJS folks. So now let me come out of my React and then cd into Next. So we are in our NextJS demo. Now we want to also generate we want to initialize Methane, so we can do Methane init. So it's going to ask us those questions again, or better still, we can just cancel it. Now it has generated Methane, but there's no folder there, so we can just delete it and then do Methane init. Do Methane init default. So now it's telling us keeping prompt default configuration will be applied. You can change it you can always change it by running Methane config help. So now our Methane configuration has been initialized successfully. So we can check and then see we have template tsx, component arrow, page arrows, generate style sheet first. This is because in a default Next.js project, Next.js comes with tailwind CSS, and then we already have tailwind CSS. You don't really have to start writing custom CSS again, and usually Next.js is used with popular UI frameworks out there, for example Shartian or Daisy UI or Radix UI or Chakra UI. A lot of options out there, so you really write what's the name, custom style sheets. So we have the generate style sheets to be false, we have the generate folder to be true, and we have the style sheets type to CSS in case you just want to generate the style sheet. So now let's start with component generation. So now we can open our app, which is like the root folder for any Next.js project, Next.js 14 app router project. So now let's create a new folder. We can create component, and then we can so that's all. By default we can like generate our Next.js page from the terminal. So we already have a component now, so let's try to create a component in Next.js. So we can use Methane g/nc, which means Next.js component. So let's create a component, let's say animated button. So this will automatically create animated button. You can notice now this is one of the new features I just added to Methane like today. Notice the name of the component is animated button. Now under normal circumstances we think the component generated soon we have this what's the name, it will have this animated /button. We know if it's like this, Next.js is going to scream at us. So the new feature I added was it's going to detect wherever there's an hyphen, and then it's going to like concatenate the two words together, so you don't have to fix any errors. So now we have our Next.js component, and we can see use clients. So by default, whenever you generate a component or a page, it's going to use it's going to make it a client component. So if you want to change that, you can add a flag called city, which is component type. It applies to the pages of the component. So if you specify city, you can specify city server. So now we are going to change the server component soon. But you can see we have animated button, and then we have our component called animated button. And then in my page, I can even come here and say import animated button, and then here I can just use animated button. So just like so. So now let us create a server component. So now we can clear our terminal and then Methane NC. Let me create a button now. So I can notice I'm using small letters. For example, I generate a button component. That does not mean the button component will be small letter. So now if I go to components, you can see the folder name is small letter, but the component name is not small letter. So now there's a convention while creating component that all your components and name must be uppercase, and no, must be capitalized. Like the first word must be in capital letter. So Methane also follows that convention. And just to make things let's create a server component. So let me do Methane GC. So now let me just create a maybe header component, and then we can do city, which is components type, and then we can say server. So now header component generated successfully. So if I open my header, we see no use client, no use client, let me just call it directive, no use client pasting on the top like we used to have in the client component. So now that's all for generating components, Next.js components. So now let's move to pages. So now let me clear. So now to generate a Next.js page, we have different type of pages in Next.js. So now we have different type of pages in Next.js. We have the normal pages like you route to, for example, /auth/login, and then we have dynamic pages, which the content of the page is determined by the parameters, the URL parameters. For example, you have a page like /product/1, so we know that the content of the page is dynamic. So whatever is in the URL is grabbed and then sent to the backend, and then the backend populates the front end with that specific information. So for example, if you do /product/2, the content is going to be different. So you understand what a dynamic page is in Next.js, not just Next.js but any other like MVC applications out there. So we know what a dynamic page is, and we know how to generate it. We know how a dynamic page works in Next.js. So for example, I can have a page like let me just create a page. So we can do Methane G/n. So we want to create a page np. So you can create a page called product. So product, and then we create our product page generated successfully. So now we have our page of TSX. So now, why is this thing misbehaving? So now let me close my sidebar. So we have the cool stuff. We have use clients, import React from React, use router, and use path name from Next Navigation. So, and we also have a basic RAFC boilerplate. So I don't know why anyone is not using Methane. So it's very, very clean, sweet. So, and now you know you are using Next.js, you can just easily go to your browser, and then let me just start this project. So you can do run dev. So I can open a new terminal. So let's just go to localhost 3000. So you're going to bear with me. This is a development environment, and then it can be pretty slow. So you can see our Next.js. something you get from any NextJS boilerplate, and then we can do /product. So you get product what current part name equals /product by default when you use Methane CLI. So immediately you generate your components, definitely you have something to check on the page, so you can do /product. So now let's go back to the terminal, and then let me open my sidebar. Let me close my terminal. So now what if you want to generate a dynamic page for product, maybe product/1? So you know the convention. So normally you will come under your product folder and then create a new folder called product ID, right? And then you now create a page.tsx. But Methane can handle that for you. Let me delete this. Then I go to my terminal and then type Methane G. Let's go to the documentation first. So you can see generating a NextJS page, creating a dynamic page. So you can see I use the product this thing here, so it can make a lot of sense. So you can see the command Methane G NID, which means NextJS. Then what's the ID? The ID is product ID, which is this. Then the SP flag means start page. So you can see it here, I explained it here. SP is an optional parameter called start page, which indicates the folder to place the dynamic page in. So for example, we already have product page, which is already here. We already have product page. Now we want to create a dynamic page in the product page. So the dynamic page is going to be in the product page, you understand? So it's going to be, the URL format is going to be /product/ then maybe 1, or if you are using UUID something, you get the point. So now let's go back to the documentation. So the NID, next dynamic page ID, is the dynamic page name, which in this case is product ID. So, and then optionally you can even decide to like use city. You can always use the city flag anywhere in your when generating NextJS components or pages or dynamic pages. I can use the SP flag too anywhere when generating NextJS page or components. You can use the SP flag means start page. So for example, if you want a component to be in another component, you can use the SP flag too. So the SP flag is optional. So now we already have a product page. Now let's generate the dynamic page. So Methane G NID. So you can see I've used it before. This is a proof that I've used Methane in all my projects. So you can see my terminal is bringing a command that I've used before. So you can see I generated a page called medical record ID some weeks ago. So now NID, what ID do we want to give our product page? So let's give it product ID. And now where do we want to put our product ID page? So that is going to be we are going to use the SP flag start page, which is going to be product/product. We go back to the documentation, you can see we're on track, and then I press enter. That's strange. Okay, so let's continue from here stuff. So I was having an issue before. Now let's just feed it into our Next.js demo. So now we can now generate our dynamic page from here. So now let's run the command again. So this is the command Methane G NID, which is the Next.js dynamic page ID. Product ID is the page. Where do you want to generate it? Here. So I press enter. So we get product ID page generated successfully. So I clear my terminal, I clear my file explorer, and then I come here. We can see we have this is the page, this is the product page. Then if you go to product ID, this is the product ID page, and see we get automatic typings. So we can do params.product ID. So this is whatever the user types in the URL. So we'll go to the browser very soon so we can test this out. So if it was JavaScript, it will also give you the same thing. So now let's go to our browser. So we have product, then let me type 1 2 3. So you can see product ID works, and then we can see we get 1 2 3. So we type anything, you are going to get that ima. You type burger, malt, anything. So now that works, the product ID works, and mind you, you can apply this to any, it's not just only products. Let me show you something again. So we can do methane g np appointment. So we have our appointment page. So now we can do clear methane g nid appointment id sp appointment. And you can see we have our appointment ID in our appointment folder. So if you also go to our browser, we can do appointment. We can see appointment works, and then we can do 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So you can see it works fine. So now the interesting thing again is, after this appointment ID, now we can see generate a nested page inside this appointment ID page. For example, the user is on the product ID page. Now after they can see the details about the product, they can now check out. So you can now create a checkout page inside the product ID. So how do we do that? Let me show you. So we type methane g. Now we are not creating a dynamic page inside a dynamic folder. We are creating a NextJS page inside a dynamic page. So we do np checkout. We do checkout. Then the start page is going to be sp. I think I even wrote something like that on the documentation. Let me check. No, I'm not sure. I think I wrote it. Let's check. Okay, yes, I wrote it. You can also nest different directory structure. For example, if you have a product directory, you can have product/product ID /edit, or even product/product ID /sub product ID. The choice is yours. With this awesome command, you will never have to manually create a page. So now let's go back and then type sp, and then that's appointment, that's product/product ID. So you can see checkout page has been generated successfully. So if you go to our product ID, we can see a checkout page, and then you can see checkout. So for example, you can now have a URL like this, a URL like product, which is going to display all the products, then a particular product 1 2 3, then we can now have checkout. Tell me you don't love them. Okay, sorry. Tell me you don't like this particular feature that Methane gives you. This is a game changer. So with this, you don't even have to manually carry your hand, and then working on a NextJS project, because the NextJS routing system is a file-based routing system, and then you can be working on an application that has a lot of pages, like a lot of routes, and then you can assume you will know that your application, the file tree of your application will get bulky in a limited amount of time. So with Methane, you can generate your pages, your components right from the command line. You don't have to take your mouse and then start exploring different nested folder just to generate a page. With this SP flag, is an absolute game changer. You can generate nested pages, nested components, nested dynamic pages anywhere, anytime. For example, you just see what I did here. You now have a checkout page right inside the dynamic page, which is 1 2 3 in our case. So so that's going to be all for this video. So that's going to be all. It was a pretty long video, and thank you for staying this far. So check my profile on GitHub. let me go to some of my repositories. So so for example, in this medicine project, you can see I use Methane. Let's go to link. In this project, I also use Methane. Let's go to what else? Can't really remember. I've built a lot of NextJS projects, but that's just it. You get what I'm talking about. So Methane is something you should be using in all your projects, especially if you are writing React or Next.js. So, and the Methane is open source. You are free to contribute any day, anytime. You have a discussion tabs where you can discuss issues. You can discuss fix bugs and all. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me via Twitter. You can reach out to me via YouTube comment section, my email, LinkedIn, anywhere, Facebook. I'm literally everywhere. So thank you very much for staying this long, and please do well to share what if Methane has been useful to you. Please just tag me on Twitter. This is my Twitter profile. So just tag me on Twitter. I'll retweet your post. Let me know if you have anything you want me to add, or it's an open source project. You can always create issues and I'll assign the issue to you, submit a PR, and then I'll merge your PR. So this is my Twitter profile, and then we have a Twitter profile for Methane too. So awesome set of people following us. So you can also do well to follow Methane. So thank you very much for staying this far.